Home. Chapter 35. A Miraculous Ladybug Fanfiction written and narrated by Mira Rose. Artwork provided by XAA on Tumblr. You can find a link to the artist in the description box below. If you haven't already, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to this channel. Bonus points if you hit the bell. If you haven't already, make sure to leave a comment to help the YouTube algorithm. If you aren't sure what to comment, put Intro Squad. And also, if you haven't listened to the previous 34 parts, what are you doing? You can find a link to those parts in the description box. Now then, Home, Chapter 35. Marinette Duping Chang. Marinette felt her face grow white as a black butterfly landed next to Cat Noir's plate. Every sense she had went numb as she could only stare, bathed in trauma's drowning memories. No. She had done this. If she hadn't waited so long, or if she let him ask the questions instead of deciding to explain everything herself one-sidedly, or... Smack. Her anxiety was overridden by disbelief as she watched Cat Noir crush the Akuma with his hand, like it was any other night where one would take a newspaper to smack a moth. "Cat!" she exclaimed, watching him stare at his palm with a blank expression on his face. "Yes?" He looked up, far more nonchalant than a person who Hawkmoth tried to akumatize had any right to be. How could she put this? You just killed a magical being! More like smushed, he said, turning his attention back to the goop in his hand. Between the mood that was and the mood that is, Marinette didn't know how to respond. Will that work? Cat continued looking at his palm and shrugged. One way to find out. Cataclysm! The butterfly turned to nothingness, unlike the consequence of a lucky charm. Cat! Marinette hissed. Now you've really killed it! Think so? He asked, brushing his hand off on his leg before turning his attention back to the food. Did you just smear a carcass on your super suit? What? No. The cataclysm destroyed it. Did it, though? We'll see. If it comes back, then we know the Cat Noir ring can't handle Akuma's by itself. His mention of the miraculous stirred the guilt in her stomach. Do you think that Akuma was for you? Or... She let the silence fall, hoping he would fill in the answer for her. Marinette wanted him to know just how horrible she felt about all of this. Yeah, maybe. He made a gesture at the last piece of ahimaki, and she held up her hand in polite refusal. But I ain't nobody's camembert. You're not worried about getting akumatized? She asked. He held up his finger to pause her, still chewing. Sorry. Marinette picked up her fork to poke at the food in front of her. Nah, I'm not a kid anymore. Are you gonna stay here at least? It'd be safer. And she'd feel better. She didn't know what they'd do at the time, because both movies and video games seemed too awkward after what happened. But at least they'd be together. Then maybe she'd get another chance to explain herself. For me? Or for you? He turned his gaze to Paris instead of her. I know I said I wanted to spend the evening with you, but... Cat cut himself off, clearly conflicted with what he wanted to say. But it's my birthday. But it's your birthday. Marinette held the moment, thinking of what to say. I know you're probably disappointed in me, but... Cat set his chopsticks down, but it looked like the gesture of a man restraining himself. You just aren't listening, are you? There was a sharp edge to his voice. Your LB? cool. Then why aren't you acting like my partner? Only after his words did she see the hurt in his eyes. Hurt that hadn't been there when she first told him who she was. He was right. He told her what he needed, and she ignored that. As much as she wanted to protest the realization with the fallacy that she was doing it all for his sake, she knew it wasn't true. She did what she wanted to do to make herself feel better, not him. You want to go home, don't you? Marinette said, looking down at her tasteless meal. Cat sighed and closed the lid of a to-go box. How about Princess Bride? The Princess Bride? It took a moment for his suggestion to click. Yeah, that was actually a good idea. A movie they could both laugh at, but knew so well they didn't need to comment on what happened to the other. It was a good choice. Yeah. They cleaned up their meal in silence, but Marinette could tell it wasn't a cold shoulder. Cat Noir was lost in thought, or perhaps not thinking at all. I just want you to know, Cat began, sitting down next to her on the chase. I'm not mad. You aren't? No, just buffering. She couldn't help but laugh, slapping her hand over her mouth as she tried to stifle it. Buffering? That's why I asked for more time. If you keep typing on Google Docs while it tries to connect to the internet, you'll make no progress. It'll just forget the keystrokes. Are you really comparing yourself to a computer program right now? Aren't we all in a computer program right now? Don't even start! She laughed, unable to restrain herself. This is ridiculous, Cat. Without thinking, she pressed her head to his shoulder, greeted by his familiar cologne. What, you don't want to talk about theology the same day you reveal your identity? You silly Cat. She reached behind herself to pull a blanket across their laps as Farm Boy met Blondie. He didn't respond right away, choosing instead to pull her closer and rest his head on hers. Thank you, he murmured, his words lost in her hair, for telling me. Marinette reached up and ran her fingers through his hair, closing her eyes and taking in the moment. With this warmth and peace cradling her, it was hard to believe there'd been an Akuma in the vicinity less than half an hour ago. Well, even if Cat's cataclysm hadn't worked, they wouldn't find a little butterfly here. Not now, in this moment. I should have done it sooner. Just so you know, I wasn't trying to guilt trip you. I know. Marinette interlaced her fingers with his. Good. They continued in silence, not out of words to say, but enjoying the warmth of their partnership. Tonight added a whole new dynamic to it, but Cat was right. They'd process it later. For now, they were going to enjoy her birthday watching The Princess Bride. With rodents of unusual size and a trip to a torture chamber, Marinette couldn't imagine a better way to end the night. She revealed her identity. Thank you so much for listening. Chapter 36 is on its way. In the meantime, you can check out other videos on this channel for more Miraculous Ladybug fanfiction, and if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to stay up to date on the latest parts of your favorite fanfiction, including this one. Now then, if you haven't commented already, please do so to help the YouTube algorithm. If you don't know what to comment, put The Princess Bride. I will catch you in the next one. Bye!